Oh, good.
Hello, everyone. This is Sadaf Javed. I'm an executive coach and the founder of Quiet Thrivers. Quiet Thrivers is essentially your go to place if you're an introverted leader and you want to thrive without creating a big fuss and conserve your energy at the same time. Um, I used to be in Unilever, and after that, I kind of jumped into this area of leadership coaching. And during my career in Unilever itself, I came across this gentleman by the name of Farhad Nadeem. I've known him for more than 15 years. And I think definitely more than 15 years. He's been around different organizations from Unilever to GSK turned into Halion. And then now he is the VP marketing of consumer healthcare for Zuellig Pharma, right? I've said it correct. Perfect.
Correct. How you doing?
I'm good, Farhad. So a bit about Farhad, that why is he here? And it's really heartening to see the reactions I'm getting as soon as I posted about it. A lot of support, a lot of questions coming in as well. So I think we've definitely piqued everybody's interest in this, Farhad, and it felt like I got some comments related to, wow, this is a big unlock. Farhad is going to talk about introversion. So it's like a big
The
deal.
card carrying introvert, that makes me very anxious. I
Yes, same here.
think they're doing it on purpose anyway.
Now, who
But
knows?
no, it's good to hear
Maybe they're setting a trap. I don't know. Let's see how this
that.
goes. So a bit about Farhad is that I've always, so he was always seen as this. I use the term the silent genius in the organization. When he came, we were told very clearly, this is Farhad. He's special. His career will be better than yours. So just mind your business and don't come in his way. And we would be like, why? And then we noticed, and of course, um, there was a certain way, the way he conducted himself, the way he would really break down complex problems and simplify them. But he was doing all of this without trying to create some big image about himself. It was very merit led itself, but at the same time, there was I've seen him crisis happening, brands erupting, whatnot, but he, at least at the surface level, he seemed quite calm. And I got some questions related to this as well, that how are you able to put up a calm demeanor when things are happening around you? And I'm very sure things would be happening inside of him or in his head. Or maybe he simply thought it's not a big deal. We can get on with life. It's not life or death. So today we're going to get some confessions from him. We're not, this conversation can go anywhere. I have a set of questions, but I think the way Farhad is, he's going to pick on some things I'm going to say, and I don't know where this is going to go. Eventually, we might end up creating a hate group for extroverts. I really don't know where this will go. We have no idea.
I'm up for that. That'd be interesting. Okay. Yeah, irony of irony is an introverted group creating attention by creating a hate group and the anti-extrovert group. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. That's the oxymoron. I would
there
want
you
to
go. That's a sample of where this conversation can go.
exactly. See, we have no
Right
idea.
off.
I don't know what to ask next. So, Farhad, anything you want to add before we jump in? Anything people should know about you?
Now, I was just thinking about, I think the last time we were both, so we worked side by side in the beginning, I remember, but I was just remembering with great fondness when we were working on Sunself together during that 2009
Mm.
2000 yeah 2008 9 campaign period, which was a very fond memory for me. And I remember, because I was working with so many markets, it just put into contrast the differences in people. So now I was remembering that with fondness, and it's really good to speak to you again. It's been a long while. I mean, you, like I said, you have not aged, so whatever you're doing, coaching correlates with the fountain of youth, apparently. Whatever I'm doing doesn't, but it's just nice to see you. And no, I mean, I'm Unilever, GSK, Halion, and now at Zulig, and it's all been, like a journey. And fairly diverse. So, I'm looking forward to honestly unpacking for myself as much as, having a chat with you on how that journey has changed me, because this gave me an
Mm,
opportunity to kind of reflect as well. So
mm.
that is it. Yeah.
Cool. So maybe we turn this into a coaching session. No, it's just joking. We won't do that. You don't need it. Okay. So I think the first question comes in my mind is that when is it that you first realize you're an introvert?
I mean, I'm trying to think back. Yeah, when I was growing up,
Mm,
so being a single kid, being the youngest of a family, I had a lot of distance between my sisters and myself, and
mm,
while I did have friends, I often just played, with toys and imagination and a lot of books, and then I was not an only child, but it kind of I think started the idea that I prefer to be alone and playing imaginary games or reading a book rather than being outside in a huge group. It just
mm,
was there ever
mm,
since I can think back. Um, I always felt uncomfortable being in the center of everything. So I think as I grew older and as this lexicon came into it, I kind of retrofitted it as that, okay, I must be an introvert, because what it seems to suggest, how people define it, seems to correlate with what I act,
mm, mm,
what I act out. So I given the choice, I'd rather prefer reading a book in my room rather than being outside in the middle of a New Year's party with all my family and relatives. And they would say he's just antisocial or something or the other. So there were various definitions.
yeah.
I'd say it probably came in early professional life, if I could remember when we started looking at personality types, and I just made that connection. So yeah, probably then. But ever since I remember, ever since I can think back, I always preferred my own company. And I
Mm,
don't mean it in an arrogant or a
mm.
centered way, just or the company of a book or the company of an inanimate object that I could infuse with imagination. Probably. Let me just put it that way. Yeah.
But did that bother you in some way when people said he's antisocial or he likes to be on his own? Did it ever bother you as a kid?
It bothered my I think it bothered me. Not really. I honestly was fairly comfortable. The thing is, I was also, blessed enough to be, studious in the academic sense, that I would get good grades.
Hmm.
And the culture that you and I grew up in, if you have good grades, you are popular. um, there's not that aspect of nerd culture that you and I, because I mean it's just how we're brought up.
Yeah.
There is no extracurricular or co-curricular that you have. So yeah, that kind of insulated me. It allowed me to have the personality that I had. So
Hmm.
I don't think I actually felt castigated in any way. I think it kind of felt that there is an element of intellectual elitism, and
Hmm.
it felt right in a way, and especially in early years of schooling. It did affect me, or my family rather, to my relationship, because it always felt as if I was the one who would step aside, who was either shy
Hmm.
or I mean, if you translate the lift nahi karana, which is not really, I don't know what the English translation of that is. That is just a phrase that some uh, English or Urdu speaking people would know. But yeah, it didn't really affect me. I think I was insulated because it doesn't matter. He's smart. He's allowed to be the
Yeah.
way he
Yeah.
is.
Yes.
Um, Yeah, I mean, it's curious. I don't know if that. Yeah, that's how I believe. Yeah,
Hmm.
so it didn't really affect me. I don't think it kind of gave me that sense of self-awareness until well into my professional life.
Hmm. Hmm. No, and I think that's an important one for everybody to hear, because introverts are not people who need to be, how do I say, to be rescued. I just want to lay it out. We're not as you know, for them, as sometimes it is seen. Um, there are choices that we very actively make, who we hang out with, what we do, what do we want to say. So it's pretty much in our control. So if we choose to be antisocial, we are actually choosing to be antisocial. And yes, then your childhood trajectory is pretty similar to mine. I had some extreme forms of anxiety going to nursery and throwing up every day type of situation, because I was like, oh my god. So I had that extreme physiological reaction as a kid, which I didn't know. I didn't put a label on it. It's only now I realized. Um, but yes, then the reactions used to be in introverts case when they're growing up is related to, oh, this, he or she is a bit arrogant, um, or doesn't like to, be respectful to a grown up. Is this, every single hello and hi. In my case, I'd feel oh my god, it's an effort. Ah,
Yeah.
I don't feel like smiling, for the sake of it. And obviously, it changes when you grow up and you realize your bubble is your bubble, and there's actually a real world out there, which is the corporate world or the university and whatnot. And you're right. If you are very good in academics in Pakistan or our part of the world, then definitely you get rewarded for it and you can get away with murder. It's fine. And obviously, in your case, you had the extra of being good with music as well. So that kind of brings in an added way for you to kind of express yourself, and helps you to maintain your energy. But Farhad, when we come into the real world, which is the corporate, professional, hard life, practical life, let's just say it that way, these type of comments, did they come your way ever related to, Farhad, I know you're really good, but XYZ doesn't know that you're so good. Can you please be more visible?
I think, I mean, yes. I certainly heard it enough times to kind of remember them, and the comment would always be this, a variation of the same. I was always blessed to have. I mean, I am still blessed to have great line managers.
Hmm.
Uh, and yeah, I mean, they always said, look, I will always root for you. I understand the work you're doing.
Hmm.
You are doing great work. If you want to get to that kind of, hyper acceleration, you have got to stand in front of your work and do the Tony Stark kind of, look at me.
Hmm.
Some variation of that. I'm obviously exaggerating. I was always also lucky that, I managed to spend a large part of my professional career on brands or businesses that were doing well. So, I had the luxury of having work that spoke enough for me to keep me moving. So in a way, I didn't feel as incentivized though to respond to this feedback. I said, well, look, you're the most important professional
Hmm.
relationship for me. And while they would say that, I'd say, I will try. I didn't really mean it for two reasons. One, I don't think it was something I said. It's like saying, I would like you to grow a third arm. I say, I don't understand the feedback. It's like being more visible. What does that mean? Do I um, write more emails? Do I raise my hand? And the thing is that I didn't feel that I was invisible. Invisible, I mean, it kind of insinuates that you're invisible. I say, I don't think I'm being particularly invisible.
Hmm.
Being hyper visible is probably what they meant. It's like doing more than what a normal kind of benchmark
Hmm.
would be. Write emails, write newsletters, write, just hype notes, which I call hyper visible, not visible.
Hmm.
I didn't feel the incentive because I didn't know how to respond to it. I really didn't have any, even if I had, the intention to listen to this mentor slash manager. And the other part of it, the work was doing well enough for me to keep on going on,
Hmm.
especially in that first half of the career, I could manage to get by without having that real visibility that you need to have in
Hmm.
a second and third connection,
Hmm.
get to that next level, where, especially with wider spans, you
Hmm.
might have people who've never worked with you, but they need to know of you.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I would say, I mean, I've heard that comment. I heard in the first half, especially. Retrospectively, I think that's how I'd play it out. You've got to advertise yourself as if you were a brand. A brand's not going to sell itself. What would you do if you were a brand? You would be a little noisy, right? You'd
Hmm.
be hyper visible. Think of yourself as that. I think that's what the advice I'd give to somebody, to myself at that age. It's like, think of it as something you're doing, not something who
Hmm.
you are. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. So then tell me one thing, like, because this is something that I've
You've heard that before as well. I mean,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah, yeah, a lot of times, and this is what I kind of want to allude to, is that whenever I used to get this feedback, my instinctive emotional reaction would be very rebellious.
Yeah.
I'd be like, no, I'm not going to be someone I'm not. Because the person, whether their intentions were great or not great, whatever, usually it's good intention, I would like to assume. I would say assume that they're asking me to follow a path that would lead to inauthenticity. Like again,
Yeah.
introvert, thinking too much, extreme positioning. So it was too much black and white. So that was my reaction, and I remember those initial management trainee days were harder because it was Hunger Games, and we had to kind of scramble and figure out, "Well, I hope I get the best ABM position in the world." Like it was like that. And our bosses were kind of pushing us down everybody's throat. Oh, look at her work, and I'm like, oh, cringe, right? So my
Yeah.
instinctive reaction was always on the rebellious side, and I was being forced to rehearse presentations, present in front of people, which I felt trapped. Like I don't
Oh,
like
I
it.
know who made you do that. That sounds like.
So I kind of didn't enjoy that piece. But eventually, I got a mentor uh, who kind of who was an introvert, and he said this to me, that listen, you have been hired in the organization to give your point of view on how the organization can add value. That's why you're being hired. Now
Mm,
if you do not present your point of view, then they're not going to know, and you're not adding value. Today you're working on your own, by yourself, reporting to a boss. Tomorrow you might have three people, two people who will
yeah.
report to you. Now you will have to work for their visibility, your team's visibility, and at the same time motivate them, lead them, give them your point of view. Like, how would you do that?
Mm,
So don't do it from the point of view of extreme, that I have to put up a show. The show part has to get removed from an introvert's head, that I have to put up a show. Think of, I have to keep presenting my point of view, and through my point of view they will know who I am, my subtle way of
You
doing
build
things.
salience, you build your brand salience. So there
Salient,
you go.
exactly.
It's a
Salience
means to
followed
an
by
end.
trust.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that's what it is. And for brands as well, right? You do the saliency, you get the trust built, and then obviously they buy. So the trust can only come when I
Yeah.
start saying
They
something.
have enough repeated impressions of you, memorable, and then they can monetize it, and then it's a fair equation. I will promote you, pay you more money because I am monetizing your experience as expressed through
Exactly.
many impressions, which again, I mean, it leads to such interesting areas. It's like, would it be because organizations are huge and matrix, you reach a point in your career where you move out of the country in lovely pseudo family environment that we had, and then you move into areas where there's a region or a cluster head who probably will never hear of you, maybe twice a year,
Yes.
or will hear of you vicariously to other people. So you have to be loud enough to travel that far. So maybe it is a factor that this has increased in the wake of companies becoming more matrixed.
Hmm.
you want to be promoted, you gotta have to be heard across the pond. But I'm curious. So one more question. Sorry, I know I'm kind of flipping this on you. I wanted to ask you this: as you became a leader, have you ever given this feedback to somebody? You need to be more visible, and because I think I have done it, and I'm trying to put the shoe on the other foot and say, why did I say that to them? And was there anything different? But you know, have you done that before? And
So I'm very anti saying it. So I was very clear in my head. I'm not going to say it because it really would confuse a young leader, whoever your mentor. It confuses the hell out of them. They
yeah,
just don't know what to do with the feedback. It's just like, telling somebody be more strategic. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, what do you want me to do? Right? I'm approving artworks every day, like all the time. You want me to be strategic? How? So I kept it in that kind of a bucket.
mm,
And I've always seen it as that if my resource has a visibility problem, then it's my fault. That's the way I've seen it. Because that person is part of my organization.
your job is to give them the shoulder to shoot, to fire off from, or the leg up, or whatever.
Yes, yes. And I've seen that it's a hack that I kind of also get my coaches to think of, is that if visibility is causing a stress in your head because you are being told, hide behind your team, make them visible, tell people about what they're doing, tell them tell people about their project success. It's directly indirectly giving people a sense of your leadership, your visibility, your projects. So it's a
But
it's
yeah,
a
I get
it's a
that.
temporary hack that can help. um
That is something I've kind of squared in the latter half of my.
yeah,
I
same.
mean, I know we're going to talk about it later, but yeah, that's interesting. Just how you kind of resolve it and see it from the other side. Okay,
so,
interesting.
so one bit that I would want to know from you as well is the type of, there's certain leadership rules out there in the organization.
Mm.
Obviously visibility we touched upon. Stakeholder management is another piece which is a bit tricky for introverted leaders, but like you said, in a matrix organization, and especially if you are in a big role, whether it is a VP region, VP global, or whatnot, I think maybe 90% of the time we're just talking to people, and sadly sometimes thinking less about the consumer and more about who is it I need to convince so that my thing can go forward. So there's a lot of internal conversation that keeps happening. In those, do you feel that introverts have things stacked against them, or what do you do? What are your tricks and tips for this?
I mean, I realized at the towards the middle to yeah, about halfway through, maybe latter third is where I kind of really leaned into it
Hmm.
because I've had the different roles. I mean, again, it depends on the role you're doing. If you are a functional specialist,
Hmm.
think of a PhD researcher who has a very, I mean, the analogy would be somebody who's very, very narrowly focused on one subject, which probably five people in the world do.
Hmm.
That person could spend an entire life not having to talk to anyone.
Yes.
And they would be perfectly happy, and because they have themselves, they have a couple of pairs, and that's it. And then, yeah, I mean, and then on the other spectrum, you have roles which are like massively, I mean, shallow is probably the wrong word, but um, low depth, very high width. So, like, the roles we're talking about, maybe geographical heads or anything. I mean, just to take an example, where the only thing is picking up a phone, or an agency, or some kind of situation where you have clients, and 99% of your time is having short, sharp, quick, decision oriented conversations, ideally.
Hmm.
Um, is the deck stacked? I mean, it depends. If we pick on, let's say we pick the area of where we are, which is global multinationals. I'm assuming, most of our viewers, most of the people listening in are let's just take that. Is the deck stacked against us? Um, I think the deck does assume that you are able to achieve. So if you work backward, what do you need to do well at a job, let's say senior VP or senior head? You should be able to talk to 20 people during the day, 15-minute conversations, have the attention span and the energy and the decision making abilities to have constructive conversations without ruining the relationship, and kind of building equity, emotional equity. And then you may also have to have enough energy to go out in the evening and have a networking session. That is what you need to be good at this job. Now, is somebody who calls himself an introvert going to be good at that? I think yes, I think it's possible. The question is, how much energy will they have left at the end of it? We were talking earlier about, I mean, after so many definitions, I think the one that again, my very naive brain uh, has arrived to with it is, what energies do you have and how do you use them? And maybe it's not quantity, but it's the quality of energy.
Mm,
So
mm,
um, it really is the deck stacked? No, but it probably, the way it's structured right now, those particular roles will take more out of somebody who identifies as an introvert. So the way I resolve it is, I've done different roles. um, the current role that I have right now does require me to talk to a lot of people and make decisions, which happens naturally as one gets senior, and you tend to have more decision making and a
mm,
wider span. I've developed it like you would develop a muscle. Um,
mm,
is it something I would have done naturally? No, but then I also did the very deep, global, kind of narrow role, and that developed different muscles. So I suppose that you look at it, what do I need to do to succeed at this? And you kind of try and work backwards from there. And then you identify, okay, I need to network, I will network. And it's kind of building a toolbox and differentiating who you think you are, because who of us knows who we really are, from what you have to do. So
mm,
act. It's like that, the onion or the concentric circle. What you act, what you think, what you believe, and I say, well, this is a skill. It's the
mm,
same skill as presenting from PowerPoint. You should be able to talk to people, make decisions, use the right language without,
mm,
don't be transactional,
mm.
build a relationship even if the conversations aren't tight. And that's where I end up right now. So it's a good test of me as an introvert. I may have to submit my card back, because I was telling you earlier, I think my current team says, you're not an introvert, you're an imposter, you shouldn't be on this podcast. And it's like, am I an introvert? Only an introvert will ask them that question, themselves that question, because but I'm learning, and that's where I've landed so far. So I guess one is, where do you choose to work, and the other is, what tools do you bring, and making sure you differentiate the hand that's
Mm,
using the tool
mm.
from the tool.
I think
That's how I
this one
hunt that.
all the introverts that are listening to it, to this, you need to realize that you have um, a very core strength, um, which is planning and deep thinking. That's your core strength. I'm not saying that the other side is dumb. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that a little tiny decision that we take, we, whether we like it or not, we plan for it, and that is actually our core strength. So in Farhad's example as well, first he quickly got out of the denial. No, I'm not going to do that. He actually never went through the phase. He's like, okay,
Yeah, you're more stubborn than I am. I realize that now. I'm remembering more of it. You know what? Sadaf had a real stubborn
yeah, I
streak
had
in
that.
her. Yeah.
So he just kind of accepted that really quickly. That okay, I have to do this. I have to do this because he was able to compartmentalize it as this is part of the job.
No, but it happened when I hit the ceiling in the middle, and I
This is the only
realized, my work will only speak that
yes,
far, and other
yes,
people had
yes,
bigger
yes.
shouting
So
voices.
that's
So I
the
said,
important
well,
part.
you can either be better
Yeah,
or you can
that's
get
what it is,
better.
and that's
Yeah.
what people need to realize is that when they're kind of on that inflection point of being a brand manager or a manager to now becoming a senior leader, that is the moment you have to already start preparing. Don't allow it to surprise you. Just be mentally prepared that this will happen. You will be asked to show up more. If you don't want to use the B word, you will be told to network, but you have to do it in a way that doesn't burn you out. If you try to again try to be the life of the party, even though you hate parties, it will show. You might be able to kind of act very well, do the theatrics, jump around, but it will exhaust you and you'll start hating your work, your everything else, right? So you have to do it in a sustained way. So he kind of, Farhad, had a plan. I
No, I mean, let me build on it, because I'll tell you what I also did. There was the anxiety of attending, because obviously it is something that sits upon you. One tip I'd give for anyone for mitzvah, break it down. I mean, chunk it. What is the first thing you need to do? Get dressed. Okay, you get dressed, and first thing you want to do when you get the door, find a familiar face, talk to that familiar face, and then just allow yourself, what are you going to do next? And then you realize it's not as bad as it feels when you think about, oh my God, I've got to go and sit with 100 leaders from around the world who I don't know. It's okay. Break it down. First thing is get dressed. You have to get dressed. So yeah, I mean, to deal with that, I mean, again, this is not to kind of give anyone any pseudo advice, but it's what worked for me. That's how I tend to break it down.
And
Yeah.
I guess there's a question that also came in from the audience, as part of it is, what is it that you do, Farhad, to re-energize yourself?
Um, I mean, from a recency, I'll give you the two things that give me. I mean, it's more recent. I mean, as I've matured. Um, and I mean, I don't mean this in a facetious way. Meditation helps. Or if I were to broaden it, quiet time to wind down helps. You need to give yourself a break, even if it's 15 minutes. So my wife put me on something called yoga nidra. So for everyone who's out there, 15 minutes, that power nap that we all heard about when we were younger, this is the real deal. It re-energizes you like nothing else. So yeah, meditation and quietness. I think the other thing that really energizes me now is I'm trying to flip the script. I'm saying, how do I try to derive more energy from interactions? And I found the answer to that is find ways to be kind to people. And again, it's simple, almost childishly so maybe. But Sadaf, it works. Like I heard a tip, the practical tip of how you can make people happy. I was listening to, I mean, all these, various podcasts. I won't name them because I don't want to get into trouble. But there was a tip on, if you were to simply just look at, let's say, a model of a car or a brand going by, and it makes you think of someone. Just pick up the phone, message them, and say, "Hey, I just, saw this car and it reminded me of that time when we went road tripping. How are you doing?" That little message to the person who receives it creates so much joy.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that is a nice thing. Happiness is not something that is, happiness is something that's available to everyone. So what I do is to re energize myself. I'm trying to kind of flip the polarity, to be honest with you, and saying, how do I derive these moments of kindness and happiness? And I realize that actually is a good source of energy for me. I don't know if introverts or extroverts have natural predilections towards kindness, which is, again, kindness is fairly amorphous. It's, empathy. Are introverts more empathetic, or are extroverts? I mean, again, but I just find, if the question is how do you re-energize yourself, I find that these are two sources of energy. One is genuinely physiological, The other one is more
Mm,
emotional. Um, it genuinely makes me feel good if I've had a good conversation with somebody who's
mm,
especially kind, then it just multiplied. And there is nothing better, nothing more energizing than having a wonderful conversation with somebody who's kind, thoughtful, and
mm,
empathetic. Best thing. And ironically, that's something that you would say introverts wouldn't be
mm,
geared to do. So yeah, that's where my
mm.
energy comes
No,
from
you're right. And
nowadays.
also, eventually, when you become a leader or when you have a big team, that is what will make a difference with your team's motivation, how they move, how they want to follow you, all of it, because it's essentially empathy, and it is coming from a place of genuine care. It's not superficial, and I want to kind of get to this point for introverts, which is really important in terms of you can also display kindness by listening, and we're really good at listening. We could listen all day in some cases, right? Versus in a crisis situation, usually you've seen if an extrovert comes in, they will come, an extroverted leader might come with their own ideas when they walk in the room. Guys, this is the problem. I think this is what we should be doing. You, do this, go. And people start running. So, in certain situations, extroverts are very useful when some quick turnarounds are needed or whatnot. In case of introverts, of course, the demeanor will be, guys, this is the problem. What do you guys have to say? And everybody kind of contributes and you listen in and then you give your opinion. So that in itself is a very important quiet strength that introverts have. But yes, the tricky part is if you overdo it to the point that no decision is coming from you and you're just sitting and listening, that is where it can turn into your handicap. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean it's interesting. I'm trying to kind of think about it, in terms of my own experience. So, I think the listening part. So I don't listen as
Mm,
well as I should. I mean, um, but I still stand by the side that on the spectrum I'm still towards the reflective space, and I'm trying to see why is it that I don't listen, and that directiveness that comes when you have a crisis. I do come in and
mm,
say, okay, we're going to do these three things because, and again, it's more. I mean, I was trying when you were speaking. I said, why do I do that? If that doesn't kind of sound, I mean, what's the discrepancy? And I find out that that's
right.
again a skill set, so it's a muscle that you develop. All right, we have 24 hours to respond to this crisis, and there's a time for debate, there's a time for listening. Now it's not. How do I feel at the end of? I mean,
Mhm,
so that's where I ended up saying, do I feel energized by that kind of situation? I mean, it has an exhilaration, the adrenaline factor, so I have to separate that out. But honestly, yeah, if you ask me between two scenarios, would you rather be in an armchair thinking about something
mm,
with a whiteboard, or would you rather be in the middle of 10 people all yelling and drawing a flow chart? 100 out of 100 times I'd pick number A. So I
mm,
think, yeah, I mean, you may have to situationally deal with, scenarios, and you have to be able to act
yeah.
and behave in a certain way. But yeah, don't let it kind of, exactly like you said, your core strength is not your core strength of being able to sit in contemplation and deep thinking is unfortunately, and especially in today's attention I mean, oh my god, the span of attention that we have, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, I mean, however you sit on the spectrum, just time to let your brain
Mm,
focus. It is sad that we can't read books, or sit and reflect and think beyond 30 seconds before suddenly wanting to switch. So yeah, I think those of you us who do recover, who retain that strength, especially in today's world, it's even more strong because the average person has the attention span
what?
of a YouTube short. You as marketers, we've contributed to it, so let's take our own share of it. But
Mm,
but yeah, It is a quiet strength and a
Hmm,
powerful one.
hmm, hmm. It's in any case, I mean, just for people, I think it's Adam Grant who says that there's no such thing as a pure extrovert or an introvert. Otherwise, they'll be psychopaths. It's not possible. Everybody is a bit of shade of here and there. So nobody's like pure, which is fine. Everybody has, and it has a lot to do with the way we cope with things, situations. Like you said, a skill is required to do a job well, so you acquire the skill. How much is that going to bother you is the part you have to work with yourself in your head. um, do not take feedback as literally as it sounds. Just don't take it as that. You'll have to go a bit deeper, make it a bit kosher and halal for you, what is acceptable for you, and then kind of figure out your way out of it. Otherwise, if you take it literally, in my case, I'll instinctively rebel. In case of Farhad, he'll be like, okay, let me make a plan and then change. And
Yeah, I've softened when I realized I wasn't as smart as I was. So, there is a direct correlation between um, me realizing I'm not as smart and me becoming more open to change. So, again, yeah, it's not always a bad thing, guys. I mean, surround yourself by people who are smarter
all
than you, as they say. But so I want to try my analogy on you. Tell me what you think as a coach. So I'm trying to figure out, what is a good analogy, just to add to the spectrum of analogies that we have. So I'm thinking. So think about exercising, and I'm thinking about two analogies. One is there's person A who loves CrossFit. Now CrossFit's very social. It's a group exercise. You do it, it gets you from, let's say, level 1 of fitness to some level 5. So you achieve a goal through this exercise of rapid, very social, very kind of driven by a box. It's even, it's called, all the language is very collective. Then you have person B. Person B has a group of 2 or 3 gym bros, or gym sisters, works out through, hypertrophies. One day they do one exercise, and it's very slow, it's measured. At the end of the day, that person also goes, in general sense, from 1 to 5 as well in terms of fitness. Now they've both achieved a certain goal, but they've done it through very different sources, preferences of
hmm.
getting there. What do you reckon? I mean, does so the idea is you can get to the same destination. You enjoy the working out. It is just the way you prefer to, sort of generate energy, or sort of build that fitness is different. Do you think that has any parallels to what we're talking about?
I think it does give you a sense of the journey that each party takes in order to get to the same result. So success might uh, look the same. For two, I'm talking about quantitative success in numbers, right? Not the
Mm.
qualitative or whatever. The quantitative success might look exactly the same, but that journey itself, how they got there, is obviously quite different, and it gives you a sense of it actually doesn't matter um, how what journey
Yeah.
you choose itself. Do it what works for you, um, versus going for only one way. You don't have to have one set journey in order to reach success. You will get success, but you can actually do it based on your own terms. Is the way I would see it. I don't know if it gives you.
No, I guess then what it leads me to do is you may achieve that destination, but then the question is, as you said in the beginning, like, who decides whether the level fives that both people have achieved is the same? So I might say that CrossFit guy is better because I rank them that way. Now, it's not an objective world. So, like you said, coming back to corporate success, you may very well think I've achieved the same results, but they will go for the
Yes.
the one or to because of something structural behaviors that are have been correlated with leadership success, not necessarily causative but correlated, which then goes back into concepts of how corporations are set up, and then you open up a whole Pandora's box of Oriental and Occidental philosophies and how to manage, and Japan versus US, all of that. But yeah, I mean, I think is that how who measures success is as important, and in the world of you know, corporate leadership, there nothing is really objective. It is subjective.
It is, and
People make
I
decisions.
I now see your analogy more clearly, because that's what usually the problem is when you have two set of people. They both achieved and overachieved the results, but the way they did it, a lot of time your bonuses and your ratings are dependent on they showed more leadership. About what more leadership? I got the same result. No, they motivated people and they kind of got people around them. They're amazing in teams and whatever.
They chaired the Christmas
Exactly,
party.
the chair. They did things outside their comfort zone and whatever. But we got the same result. Ah, no. But there's that whole back and forth, and it is real. It happens all the time um, to introverts itself. The way I would say we need to look at it is an organization is not only betting on what results you're getting now, but they're also betting on what type of results will you get in the future. So things that will
Yeah.
help you to grow in the organization. So your potential is also getting evaluated. Your potential can't just be evaluated based on you achieve the result today itself. So there is what sadly line managers sometimes don't explain the potential, and they get stuck on the feedback in that moment in time. So therefore the conversation has to be flipped on that. Listen, there are certain leadership traits that are needed in order for you to grow in the organization. These are those leadership traits, because tomorrow a lot of things will not be in your control. You won't be able to make the presentation by yourself, the artwork, approval, ad, blah blah. You will delegate only. You'll get people around you. So if you want to be the
Oh, you have to represent a
a
huge
huge
group
group,
of
or
people.
today you're just talking to your VP and your president, tomorrow you have to talk in front of shareholders, and they will not be
Yeah.
kind. So you have to learn that skill of the future, and this person is already starting to exhibit those traits. Now that is a very important
Yeah.
explanation, and also then the person getting this feedback has to put their line manager on the spot, that okay, that tell me how to do it in a way that doesn't make me feel inauthentic, fake it or make it, and blah blah blah. You have to do that.
Literally, just think of. You know how you said, for example, just taking the same analogy, you said that you derive, and I strongly believe in what you referred to earlier, that it is not a personality type, it's a situational spectrum, because you could be in front of 100 people
Yeah,
presenting, and that would give you energy and
yeah.
adrenaline. You were talking about that. And so you say, okay, I will build the traits that you say are
Hmm.
important for me. So you remove the conversation with the idea
Yes,
of optics, which is
yes.
visibility. And you say, okay, here are the 4 or 5 traits: the ability to project a vision, the ability to lead from the front,
Hmm.
conviction of strategy, clarity of thinking, charisma, whatever. I mean,
Hmm.
these are the 5 things. And I will build them through showing a clarity of my view in a presentation form that I will deliver. I will be the presenter for category XYZ presenter instead of you. Now, if your line manager really backs you and says, you present, I give it to you, I trust you, and you have that agreement, I will showcase this trait
Hmm.
through this means. I will not do it through staying, let's say, for example, for drinks until 2 a.m. and I'm going to work on that basis, and that is what you then agree to, and you live
Yes.
with the consequences of that, which I
Yes.
think is fair. So yeah, I agree. I like how you kind of work backwards from here's what you need, and these are kind of as factual as you could make them. And you say, how do you achieve this? And if in doing so there is something that you can do, or a set of things you can do, the question of optics, that
Yes.
trigger word, that
Yes.
gaslighting doesn't come at all. That element of
Yes.
alienness doesn't come in. It's like, well, I can do a presentation. I just spend 5 hours in my office or in my
Yes.
study preparing for it, which is exactly what they and then they present, and then they do 100 question answer rehearsals, but they do
Hmm.
it on their own, and then they're ready, and then you realize that you're actually becoming more
Right.
visible without actually even having thought about
Yeah.
it. So I like that. I mean, I'll actually take that forward for my own self. Yeah, the what, the how, the what, why, and how.
Yes.
Again,
Structure it in your
like
head so that it kind of works for you. And like you, I think one part you said in between is you didn't use the terminology, but what I got from you is be sure about your boundaries, your red
yeah,
lines. Like, I'm not going to do that visit to the pub, after working. I'm not going to do that, um, because I'm going to do it in a way that works for me. Agree on taking on the feedback, but then I also agree on your boundaries. Otherwise, you'll kind of
yeah,
fall into the inauthentic side of things, and you won't be able to do it. So this becomes very important for an introvert. When you're starting off your leadership journey, be sure about your values, be sure about your boundaries. And usually, when we know things like, oh, what are your values, people say things like integrity, family, wealth, health, blah blah blah, blah, blah. We have these kind of things. These sound very meaningless because we all do these exercises, but you have to translate these into some core principles, some conditions that you have for yourself, so that in times of crisis and emergency, you can hold on to them, and kind of let them anchor you. But also be mentally prepared. Things might not go your way. So you need a bit of courage
yeah.
to be okay with it. Uh,
It is simple. It is not easy because, yeah. I mean, you and I have played the Smoke Ninja. I mean, I've played the Smoke Bomb Ninja more times
yes.
than I can count. They have names for those people who vanish out of
Really?
parties,
What's it
really
called?
interesting ones. It's an Irish goodbye, somebody once said. It's like, what does that mean? It's like somebody who just vanishes. So they just walk away. They don't even think. And I was like, that is what I do. But I mean, that is a whole other thing. I mean, that is just, I don't like saying goodbye. I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, it does take. It may feel as if you are being extreme, making an extremely career limiting. The team is going out after a great awards night and you're staying back, it will be noticed. Now, not everyone knows your boundaries, and not everyone cares about your boundaries, but they're your principles for a reason. And while I say it's okay, you learn, you develop, you understand what your principles are by breaking them and then realizing if they were that important to begin with.
Yeah, yeah. So guys, take it with a pinch of salt. It won't be easy, like Farhad is saying. Um, but also, like there is a bit of flexibility in this as well. You might realize, oh, I can just show my face, 15 minutes in and out. That's fine. That's a
Yeah,
compromise.
literally game it tactically. It's like, so what do
Yeah,
I really need to do? They need to see me there. Okay, go for 15 minutes.
yeah, yeah,
Um, until somebody comes up with better solutions, it's like, how do I ensure I'm there without really being there? But yeah, I mean,
yeah.
yeah, seriously speaking, yeah, just go tactically, do it. Go there, show your face. It's like, I mean, yeah, it's gamified. Break it down into digestible chunks, like what you were saying. What are the traits you needed? Like I said,
I like
a big, sort of social outing, break it down into pieces. What are you going to do the first 5 minutes? Then figure out the next 5 minutes, and then you often also realize you're actually enjoying yourself because you've kind of figured out that happy middle, which can only really happen until you're there. So you can't. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
experience. Just what I've experienced, at least.
So, guys, prepare, plan it. Who knows? Like maybe the anxiety is coming with the lack of preparation and uncertainty and spontaneity that is required. So, get that out of the system and then jump into the social interaction. It might help everybody, especially you. There's one question. We have like few minutes left, but I want to kind of take a few questions in between as well. There's a question related to that, how to manage your voice as an introvert leader, um, and at the same time staying positive while arguing out our point of view. How do you manage your tone in such situations?
So I suppose the question is, you want to be persuasive and not passive.
Yes.
So you want to kind of establish your point of view while being non-confrontational, I suppose, is the interpretation. All right. Well, I mean, the way I play that is I'm not very good at negotiations. I mean, my first thing would be take a negotiation class, but honestly, there's a couple of good books that you could read, but yeah, I mean, just the basics. How I do it is, um, I kind of yeah, I mean, I take it as, and again, this comes from experience. So I couldn't say that I was doing this 10 years ago. I just like, what does the other person want?
Hmm.
Why do they want it? Why do they want that? Okay, why do they want that? And then
Hmm.
you kind of come to almost like an insider generator, and you say, okay, that person's worried really about this while
Hmm.
they're this, and then that kind of helps me leverage the empathy muscle.
Hmm.
And the second part of that is assume the other person is not inherently evil, and assume that they assume that naively or unnaively, it's one non-naively, it's one of the choices I make is I do assume the best in people until proven otherwise, and it does not always work, but it's just now I've decided I can't change my spots. That's who I am. The other, I've got to use the other one, but my natural go-to is assume the best in people.
Hmm.
Assume that they're trying to do the best they can. They're not evil or difficult, and just try and understand what they're really trying to get to, and then you play that back for them. Be empathetic, and then you say, okay, I understand that you're trying to say this. I get this, but again, now again, how you choose words and everything, I try and do. Can you find a win-win is probably the last thing I'll try and find.
Hmm.
And again, that comes sometimes at a cost. Does it get you the best deal? No. But then who defines the best deal? I'm also, invested in the relationship with the person. So
Hmm.
can I find a compromise? So first thing is, can I drill down to the real why? Can I replay it back to them to confirm that that is what they think?
Hmm.
And then can I find an overlap with their why and my why, all the while assuming that they are not evil. They're looking out for what they believe is best for them, same as me.
Hmm. Hmm.
Kind of just reduces the stress in me. I
True.
hate confrontation, just I hate it. It is very difficult. Confrontation, direct bluntness, people, and again, it comes to that cultural thing we're talking about, which we won't go into right now, but it does create a negative impact on me. So I try and de-escalate it in my head and for the other person, and people respond to this. I've noticed more often than not.
Hmm.
I don't think people take as much advantage of us. At least I haven't experienced it.
Hmm. Hmm.
People like it when you're a nice person. I
Hmm.
mean, human beings respond to kindness. Yeah. Kindness and empathy. I mean, maybe is a better word.
In that moment, do you react immediately when the confrontation is happening, or you're kind of take it.
Very rarely. One of the things with introverts are we're like metals, like those metals that you put a slow boiling, but they boil and boil, and then they will explode, and they're like, what just happened? I have to be careful of that. But generally now at this stage, I'm able to put things into perspective. So yeah, I mean, could I say that I always have that control? Honestly, Sadaf, no, I wish I could say I did. There are ways and techniques. I put post-its on my laptop, for example, when you're in a heated presentation or a really tense presentation or a stakeholder one. You
Mm-hmm.
forget to listen and you try and answer people.
Yes.
And senior stakeholders love it when you interrupt them and try to answer them before they've asked a question. They
Yes.
love it. By the way. Yeah,
Yes.
guys, I'm joking. Don't do that. Gamify it as much as you can. Put tips and tricks there, but the way I've managed reaction is through experience. I realize nothing's as bad as it is, as it seems.
Yes.
Nothing's as good as it looks. So, and then that kind of comes with getting older. But yeah, that's at least how I deal with it.
So Farhad, our 1 hour is up. I want to thank you for coming in, saying it the way it is. Anything you want to say? Last few words.
No, I suppose just pretty much what we've been talking about. I think the advice that I take away from myself as well is um, try and understand what you want to achieve,
Hmm.
and then work backwards from there. And if there is an element or a trait or a behavior that you need to show, wherever it falls in the spectrum, leave that out and just do it as an objective,
Hmm.
and try and use that as a barometer, both for managers and for people who are being managed. Just yeah, exactly what you said. I really can't add anything more to that. That's a really nice piece of objective, constructive collaboration that you can do with your managers, that does not have those trigger words of "you need to be more visible."
Yes.
Do you want me to be more dense? Do you want me to be more big? Am I?
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
the reaction that is always there. I don't know why people don't.
There's so many comebacks, right? It's all like sitting there in the back. It's like,
Exactly.
what do you mean more
What do
visible? Do
you
you
mean?
want like
Exactly.
light? Is light passing through me? But
Exactly. It's
but
like kind of like telling somebody who's hyperventilating to calm down. It's like, don't.
exactly. Yeah, no, no, calm down. Breathe, breathe. I can't
Yeah.
breathe. But
Yeah.
no, and the second thing I just reinforce is the quiet strength of deep reflection and meaningful conversation. The older I've gotten, um,
Hmm.
I had a wonderful conversation with you, it reminds me of a conversation I had with somebody yesterday. It was a similar person, very quiet hour, and genuinely derived energy from that. So yeah,
Hmm.
you find your sources of energy, whether it's meditation energy, whether
Hmm.
it's just having reflective empathy energy, or just being kind. Random acts of kindness can also be a source of energy. That's how you keep energized. On the corporate end, unpack it the way you did. What traits do you need, and how do you achieve them without sacrificing your principles?
Amazing. Guys, thank you for listening in. If you want any more introverted related practical tips, you can always subscribe to my Quiet Fridays newsletter. I'll put the link down in the chat. But thanks a lot, Farad, for doing this. And yeah,
You
take care.
take care as well. So bye.
Bye.